Iron Man 3 with the Mandarin. Yeah. What's up, guys? This is the Heath Carnes. The following is a full in-depth review of the blockbuster film Iron Man 3, which released on May 3rd of this year. And the following contains major spoilers. You have been warned. Enjoy. So basically, we're back. Tony Stark is back in action. Iron Man, the first Iron Man film, obviously since the Avengers, the event of the Avengers. It's all about Iron Man and exclusively about Iron Man. And this time he's battling a villain named the Mandarin. The Mandarin, played by Ben Kingsley. Yeah, he seems like a really big badass in the trailer. However, a big twist takes over. Well, basically the movie is about Iron Man, Tony Stark, pretty much picking up off of the Avengers and continuing to be his own hero. You know, basically he's, you know, the Avengers have dissembled for now until they need to, you know, assemble again to work together. Thor, Captain America, the Incredible Hulk, and all the others, you know, I'm not going to name them all off. They have all gone their separate ways and left each other pretty much to fight their own battles. So Tony Stark is on his own, and this time he's facing his biggest threat yet, a terrorist, a very evil and just fucked up guy, basically, that goes by the name of the Mandarin, that he must confront and ultimately have his ultimate battle with out of all the villains he's faced in the last two Iron Mans. So basically the movie, like I said, you know, it picks up after the Avengers. It's Tony Stark after the events of the Avengers. He's continuing his life with his wife. Are they married? I can't remember if they're married. I think they are. Sorry if I'm wrong. I don't really, you know, I'm not a major fan of the Iron Man movie, so I don't know every detail. But I'll just say his woman, Gwyneth Paltrow, returns as his woman, and basically he's kind of like, Tony Stark is kind of like, you know, trying to get over the events of the Avengers, and basically what I kind of picked up from that, and I could be wrong, but this is just what I kind of think they were doing, was like Tony Stark was just shocked that he wasn't the not only hero out there, but these guys actually had superpowers, and he was just a man in a suit. But also the amount of threat that he faced and had to ultimately help destroy in the Avengers, which was, you know, all the bad guys from, you know, Asgard, I think it is, with Loki and all that shit from the Avengers, which was a great movie too. So anyway, you know, basically Tony Stark's trying to pick up his life and move on, and then the Mandarin comes along, you know, pretty much his biggest threat, as I said earlier, and he actually ends up calling out the Mandarin. You know, he calls out the Mandarin on, you know, television, gives out his home address to the Mandarin, which was kind of stupid because nobody that's really responsible, especially when you have somebody with you, in this case his woman, that, you know, could be potentially a target. You know, Tony Stark is very irresponsible, very overcocky because he's in the public eye when he does this, and he calls out the Mandarin basically to say, hey, you know, just come to my house and, you know, we'll duke it out and stop talking shit. So basically the movie, after he calls out the Mandarin, the movie, before he calls out the Mandarin, the movie's really slow. You know, I went and saw this in the theaters. You know, I saw it on the big screen and everything. I didn't bootleg this one. Went with my father and my nephew, and sat through this movie. You know, it was a long movie, but expecting that, and unfortunately, it really dragged. I mean, I don't know about the other reviewers on here, if they really touched on that. I watched one other review, and he didn't even mention it dragging. I guess he liked it a lot more than I did. But the movie really drags, and I think a lot of people will agree with me there. There's a lot more talking, there's a lack of action for sure in this movie, until kind of like toward the end of the movie. The Mandarin, he's not really seen for a lot of the movie until kind of toward the middle-ish, end-ish of the movie, when it starts to, you know, kind of climax, if you will. And Yeah, you know, so basically he goes to the point of calling out the Mandarin. His house gets attacked. His woman thinks that he's been killed. And Tony Stark ends up in like this small little town and learns the truth of, you know, the supposed soldier, former U.S. soldier that, you know, they thought he had a post-traumatic, what's that called? Post-traumatic stress syndrome, I think that's it. I could be wrong, but it's something along those lines. And it's very common in former soldiers. You know, they go over, they kill people, come back, and they can't really handle, you know, what they've done. And they can't really... God, it is hot here in California. But he can't really, you know, whatever. So he ends up blowing people up, killing, like, I think it's like 9 or 10 people, and then 11 including himself. Somewhere around that. It was around 11 people. And that's when Tony Stark's there and realizes that an attack that had happened prior and put his friend in a coma was very similar to this and looked the exact same. And he's like, okay, this soldier, I know this soldier didn't do this. He was used as basically a way for them to, basically he was used by the bad guys. Blah, blah, blah. So after he leaves the town, when he's in the town, I don't want to skip over too much. When he's in the town, he meets this little kid who's, you know, it's like the kid was funny, but you knew that they were trying really hard to make him funny. But I mean, he was funny and it did work. But there was times when the kid was just too intelligent for a child. And I'm not saying kids can't be smart. Kids can be smart, and some are very smart. But this kid was just a little overdone, in my opinion. I think they did a little too. I think it was a little bit of overkill on the kid's character for sure with his intelligence. So basically, after Tony Stark makes friends with this kid, he fixes the suit. Well, he leaves, and the suit gets fixed. Blah blah blah. I'm not really going to go over this. I mean, like I said, the movie really dragged. And he finally finds the location of the Mandarin. So he goes into this place, and there's like a bed, and there's 2 chicks in it, and you think, okay, cool, you know, he's found the Mandarin, but how did he get there so easily and all this? You're kind of thinking like, okay, whatever, you know, I'll just roll with it, I guess. So you think he's finally going to come at least face to face with the Mandarin, or at least find out where the Mandarin is, and then out comes the Mandarin after taking a shit, and he's like really comical. He comes out, and he's like, oh man, I wouldn't go in there for like 30 to 45 minutes or something like that, and he says it without his regular voice. And I was just like, okay, well maybe he's just kind of a silly villain in private, but he acts like a badass in the public eye. I could roll with that, so I let that go. But then he gets taken down by Tony Stark. Tony Stark comes out and says, you know, don't move, and that's when the Mandarin's like, okay, you got me, and then you're just kind of like, what? So the twist is unveiled. The twist is shown, and you're shown that the Mandarin is actually just an actor who had plastic surgeries to make himself look like a actual terrorist, Osama bin Laden in this case, and he was put up there to basically be a frontman for the true villain. Now the true villain, I didn't cover this earlier, but that's okay. The true villain is actually a guy in the very beginning of the movie. They go back to 1999, and they show Tony Stark back in the day, and he gets approached by this really nerdy guy. I mean, he's got glasses, long blonde hair, really bad, facial acne and all that kind of shit. So, he gets approached by him and he has some kind of an amazing thing that he's working on, and Tony Stark's just totally ignoring him, just not interested. And he ends up telling the guy that he'll meet him on the roof in about 20 or so minutes. Guy goes to the roof. Tony Stark totally blows him off. Never goes up there. And you think that's it. Well, the guy reappears. Actually knows Tony Stark's woman, and that's when they collide. And it's revealed that the Mandarin was fake. He was just brought on by this guy who's looking to get revenge against Tony Stark by trying to destroy Tony Stark. So yeah, I mean, long story short, the movie dragged, as I said before. Tremendous acting. Acting, of course, was tremendous, as it should be for such a high-budget film. The action that was in there was very, very cool. It was a good movie. Don't get me wrong. I just don't think that the movie was as good as it should have been, or as good as anybody really thought it was going to be. I think it was a movie that lacked a lot of elements that it should have had, and really the main element that it really lacked is a lot of action. And I think the Mandarin twist was completely unneeded. I think the Mandarin should have been legit. I think the Mandarin should have been his toughest adversary yet. And I think they even should have did kind of like what Bane did with Batman in The Dark Knight Rises, was really just take the Mandarin and have the Mandarin destroy Tony Stark, you know? Like have the Mandarin do something. But, you know, I mean, a lot of people have been pissed about it. Some have been okay with it. Me personally, I'm not a comic book fanatic, so I don't really care about the Mandarin being bullshit. But a lot of people are mad, and I can understand that. So I can see how the movie is ruined for some people, for sure. So when it comes down to it, you guys, what do I think of Iron Man 3? It's a good movie, very slow, too long for what it was. It could have been an hour and 1:45 tops, and it was over 2 hours long. Overall, the movie was decent. Do I recommend seeing it? Absolutely. From a 1 being worse, 5 being amazing, I would give this movie a solid 4 out of 5, just because it doesn't get a 4.5 or a full 5, because it lacked a lot of action, and it dragged a lot, and I was kind of bored almost the first half of the movie. So it was a good movie, but it really drags. I think Iron Man 2 was better in a lot of ways, including the villain. So it is what it is. Iron Man 3, 4 out of 5. Worth seeing in the theaters? Yes. Worth owning on Blu-ray? Absolutely. Good movie, just unfortunately dragged. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. Hope it wasn't too brief. This is E. Keith Carnes. Thank you for viewing, and have a good day. Peace.